back to Indy because Swag has grabbed the commissioner. No, not Tony Petitti, though many would call him that. This is the college football commissioner, the one that wants the job the most. Late Kick with Josh Pate, our good friend Josh Pate of Late Kick Live. He's got a late edition today is what he teased on his Twitter account, CBS Sports HQ on Twitter, at Late Kick Josh. We have a lot of football to talk about here, Commish, but I need an honest God's hand-to-God review. Twisters. Where are we at on Twisters?
All right, so I send out chalices of supremacy, chali of supremacy. I also rate movies on a sliding chali scale. For the listeners who are unwashed, if you put an I on the end of anything, it makes it plural. So we call a plural of chalice, chali. I gave it 4 out of 5 chali. So let me get the small beefs out of the way. There was not enough overlap with the first movie. There were hardly any callbacks. If you watched this movie, you never would know there was an original Twister. Not a bad thing, just a thing. The score of the movie I didn't like. I felt like it was plucked from a random action movie and dropped into Twister. The soundtrack's good. I hope you like country, otherwise you'll disagree with me. But the soundtrack's good. But here's what's most important. Okay, the vibe, they nailed it again. What it's like storm chasing, they totally nailed it. And again, for those unfamiliar, I do this stuff multiple times per year, so I know exactly, at least in this compartment, what I'm talking about. I don't speak authoritatively on much, but on this I can speak authoritatively. They also did not hijack the movie. The other concern we had in the storm chasing community was they were going to Hollywood hijack it, double H as we call it, and that is take something you love and say, this isn't good enough. It wouldn't be entertaining. Let's put our spin on it. Well, they did that like 10%, which is anything Hollywood touches. But by and large, they left it alone. There were no like weird agendas pushed in the movie. They didn't make it a romance movie that involves tornadoes, which is what some people worried they would do. It's not some shrine to Glenn Powell or anything like that. Everything fits. Everyone fits. 4 out of 5, Chali. Go see it.
I need to go see it. My little brother and I used to watch that movie religiously over and over again. Love Bill Paxton, love Helen Hunt. I know it may be the most ridiculous part of that original as a storm chaser yourself. Do they have any moment where Glenn Powell's as badass as when Bill Paxton has the dirt in his hand and he just says, let's roll? Because he can just feel it. He knows it. He can call it. And it's ridiculous, but do they have a little bit of that at all?
Yeah, so here's what's crazy. Oklahoma, as you know, is a fairly big state.
Yes.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. So there's a lot of middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma. We were out there in a very small, like, map dot town called Fairview 3 or 4 months ago chasing. And we had a tornado-warned cell, and we were chasing it out there. Okay, so we used this intersection, this little 3-way intersection in the middle of nowhere in Fairview for our staging area. Then fast forward 3 months, and I'm watching Twisters, and sure enough, the first scene, this is not a spoiler, but the first scene where all the chase teams converge on each other is right there at that place we had staged. And when I tell you this is middle of nowhere, it is 200 miles from the nearest city of any size. And so Glenn Powell pulls in there, cowboy hat on, and just screams, you don't face your fears, you ride them. There is a crowd around him. He said, hey, if you feel it, chase it. So, yes, that was the dirt drop moment in this new one.
That's awesome. Josh Pate is our guest here, the commissioner of college football. He's been traveling from media day to media day. He is in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Day. We just talked with Ohio State, Steve Hellwagon. We've talked to many guests today. Oregon's day is tomorrow, and yet they hijacked day one with a floating duck. What have we made of the new additions to the Big Ten this year and how it's all going over for other people that have been in the Big Ten?
Yeah, you want to be the person in the marketing department that makes every other person competitively in your field go, why didn't we think of that? You want to make their bosses come to them and say, why didn't we think of that? You could have had a floating anything. You could have had a floating corn cob in that river today if you're Nebraska, but no one else thought about it. It feels a little weird. I mean, I walked in the building 20 minutes ago. Lincoln Riley was on the stage. And they were asking him barbecue questions, which is the bane of his existence. And then they were asking him about his defense and how they couldn't stop molasses in December last year, as Meemaw would say. And then you juxtapose that to, we were talking to, Greg Schiano yesterday, and it's the most buttoned up, roll up your sleeves, lunch pail, go to work, smash mouth style of ball you can play. And to think that all of that exists in the same conference now. And then you throw Oregon in there as well. The difference with Oregon, and I know this has been a talking point, but it really will start to ramp up when they start playing football, is a lot of these folks in this conference are going to understand that Oregon's built to play Big Ten football a little bit more than they are built to play Big Ten football, because at line of scrimmage, everyone, aside from Ohio State maybe, and Michigan, will be playing catch-up to Oregon in that department. That's not to even mention the edge they'll have in quarterback play, perimeter skill, talent, and that sort of thing. So Lanning comes in here tomorrow. I am very interested to watch how his profile grows. I think hardcore fans know about him. Like, no one needs to tell folks like us about Dan Lanning. I still think the casual college football fan, they know Nick Saban. They're probably just now finding out Saban retired. They know who Ryan Day is. They know Jim Harbaugh. Probably don't know that he left either. They know Kirby Smart. I think they know the name Dan Lanning, and I think they remember that soundbite when he was playing Colorado. That's the extent to which I think the casual college football public knows Lanning, and they're about to get to know him a lot better this year.
Yeah, he gave our good buddy Tyson Aldra, who covers things out here in the Northwest, a great quote of Oregon in the NIL recruiting space and people saying, it's just Nike, it's money. And he basically said, well, the rabbit has the gun now, in response to Kirby Smart, which was a great quote. And I'm kind of with you. Aside from Gabriel, because he's the Heisman favorite, he's the offensive player of the year preseason in the Big Ten, is there a position group for you when you look at this Oregon group that you don't think is getting enough attention that may make the difference if they are to take that next step or win the Big Ten?
Yeah, but it's not a star-studded group. It's just the two deep on the defensive line. That group may be anonymous even on the West Coast. It may be anonymous even in the Big Ten. However, when I talk about that, I don't talk about it in individual terms. I talk about it in totality. Just the random quality of the second defensive end that they'll roll out in the middle of a game to get 12 snaps is much better than when he first got there. And he didn't inherit a poor man's roster. Mario left a lot of good talent up there. But the way that they have gone about just stacking and stacking and stacking and being totally relentless in recruiting defensive front talent, that's the difference. And it's almost like quarterback play. People talk about quarterback play all the time. And then folks who have to talk about the sport every day kind of try and find something else to talk about. They feel like they're talking about quarterback play too much. You can never talk about QB play too much. It's the most important thing in the game. Well, the second most important thing in the game is line of scrimmage talent and play at the line of scrimmage. And folks almost want to talk about anything other than that because they think it's boring or they think it's cliched to say you win games at the line of scrimmage. Well, I don't know, turn on your TV every Saturday and watch the proof get thrown in your face. So that's why I go back to what I just said a second ago. You'll watch Oregon. You may watch Oregon all season and get to December and not be able to name a single defensive lineman of theirs. But you'll know when you watch them, they've taken it to 10 or 11 other teams they played, maybe 12 other teams they played up front.
I think we both agree that UCLA is in a little bit of a rebuilding stage. Deshaun Foster coming in. They're trying to kind of revamp that. Chip Leaves for the OC gig. USC, we talked to Miller Moss earlier this morning. He was really interesting to talk to. And UW, both new members coming in this year into the Big Ten. One was in the title game, and they lost a whole ton, but they get Jed Fish. They get Will Rogers. They got some running back stability. Like, they went to the portal, and they're trying to recruit and rebuild quickly. And Lincoln, as you know, Feinbaum, your guy down there, saying, like, I'd fire him and I hired Dion after telling us Dion hasn't done a good enough job. I'm curious what you think USC and Washington will be year one in the conference.
Look, when he said what he said the other day, I mean, there's a term they've used in the South for a long time, Feinbaum season, and there is a reason why that term exists. He knows what to do in July and August. He understands there is a bridge that you have to build between July 4th and the start of fall camp, and that's how you do it. So I texted him the other day some choice emojis to express my sentiment on that front. Look, so that entire – to go back to the teams you just mentioned – there's this interesting thing happening with Missouri in the SEC that I think correlates to Washington. So once you have a big year, and in Washington's case, they played for it all. At Missouri's case, they had a double-digit win season. I don't know what it is. There's a mechanism that triggers in people's minds that all of a sudden those become reload instead of rebuild programs. Well, those are not reload programs. Reload programs recruit top 5-ish every year. And they portal that way every year. If you don't do that, which is 99% of the sport, and you have the kind of churn that Washington's had, you will take a step back even in the best of cases. There is nothing about that statement that casts an ounce of doubt on the ability of Jed Fish. Not an ounce of it. I'm saying if he's everything you think he is, then you're going to take a step back this year. I mean, do you think Sonny Dykes became a worse coach because TCU went to a title game and then was barely 500 the next year? Right. The guy was the same coach. It's just you got to it's not as simple as the old version of the video game made it out to be. Now, I'm told the new version does make it pretty tough to win, so maybe folks do need to hop on the Xbox or the PlayStation now to get a more real sense. But they'll take a step back. I was listening to Jet Talk the other day. It sounded like he's trying to condition the folks up there as much as they can to understand, this is going to work, but it's not going to work win-loss column-wise overnight.
Yeah, no, it certainly won't. The commissioner of college football, Josh Pate, late kick with Josh might be an extra late edition. He is in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Media Days. Catch a show Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. A very old, good friend of the show. It's good to catch up with you, man. Enjoy the media days, and hopefully we catch up with you down the road.
I appreciate it, brother. We're almost there. We're almost there. To quote Helen Hunt in Twister, we're almost there.
We are almost there. There we go. Josh Pate of Late Kick with Josh Pate on CBS Sports.